We may begin this sutta study by taking 10 minutes of silent meditation, sitting together. Dear friends, the sutta that I've chosen for you today is called Accusation, the Codanāsutta. And you may think that given the theme of this vasa about practicing for peace, that to speak about accusations and quarrels is kind of the opposite, isn't it? But the understanding peace may require understanding its opposite. Even these days, we're in a political season here in USA, and the candidates are going around and making accusations against each other, and that's part of the accepted to be the normal process, isn't it? Before we read the sutta, I'm going to read you something from the this is in the Parivāra, which is a part of the Vinaya, the code of proceedings, the code of ethics and behavior for monastics. You could imagine that monastics have quite a few fine points that they need to come into an agreement about. We had a discussion here at our temple saying we have to have a meditation at 5 o'clock in the morning. If there's not meditation at 5 o'clock in the morning, it's not a monastery. And then people can, have opinions. So there's 1,000 different equal points like that about how things should be done, how one should behave, and how the community agrees to behave together. And in the early days, especially, the monastics who are trying to hold themselves up to a high standard of deportment and morality, both at the basic morality and also at the finer points of morality. If I have a tear in my robe and I have to mend it within 10 days. But if it's smaller than what I can put my finger through, then it doesn't rise to the level where that rule comes into force. But if it's a tear large enough to put the finger through, then it has to be done within 10 days. So you see how exact it is? And they had a lot of discussions about this. So this is about the wrong way to do it. It says angry and resentful and fierce, reviling. He charges a non-offender with an offense. Such an accuser burns himself, whispering in the ear, looking for flaws, vindictive, following the wrong path. He charges a non-offender with an offense. Such an accuser burns himself, accusing at the wrong time, untruthfully, harshly, without benefit, with a mind of ill will, not a mind of goodwill. He charges a non-offender with an offense. Such an accuser burns himself, not knowing what is the teaching and what is contrary to the teaching, ignorant about both. He charges a non-offender with an offense. Such an accuser burns himself, not knowing the monastic law and what is contrary to it, ignorant about both. He charges a non-offender with an offense. Such an accuser burns himself, not knowing what was spoken and what was not, ignorant about both. He charges a non-offender with an offense. Such an accuser burns himself, not knowing what was practiced and what was not, ignorant about both. He charges a non-offender with an offense. Such an accuser burns himself. Not knowing light and heavy offenses, ignorant about both, he charges a non-offender with an offense. Such an accuser burns himself. Not knowing curable and incurable offenses, ignorant about both, he charges a non-offender with an offense. Such an accuser burns himself. And so on. We're going to see more. It's a very nice sutta on the surface, and it's also very deep. So if you look up in the numerical discourses in the Book of Fives, number 167, and the first person who finds it in the book can call it what page number it is in the book. You got it? Page 780 in the Wisdom Publications, translation by Bhikkhu Bodhi. I'm going to share the Bhante Sujata's translation. Okay. There, Sariputta addressed the mendicants. Sariputta is very famous for being able to explain things clearly. And he's also famous for being the victim or the object of false accusation. There's some other stories that we read recently where a young bhikkhu got upset with Sariputta and made an unfair accusation against him. Sariputta said, Reverence, a mendicant who wants to accuse another should first establish 5 things in themselves. What 5? I will speak at the right time, not the wrong time. I will speak truthfully, not falsely. I will speak gently, not harshly. I will speak beneficially, not harmfully. I will speak lovingly, not from secret hate. Speaking at the right time can mean in terms of the a monastic form, for example. There's one time of the year when we have Parivāra, that's the invitation, in which the monka comes before the community, bhikkhu or bhikkhuni, and says, Venerables, is there anything that you have seen, heard, or suspected about my behavior? And if so, kindly tell me. And that's definitely the right time to mention it if you know something, if you saw, heard, or suspected something. Actually, it would be improper if you know about something not to tell at that time. You have to tell at that time. This happens once a year, and then whatever it was gets taken care of. It could be that it was a misunderstanding and that the person charged was not really guilty of doing that. Or it could be that it's something that happened, but that person has already made amends and taken care of that offense. Or it could be that the person didn't realize that what they were doing was an offense. They should not be so ignorant, but if they didn't realize, or if they actually had the offense and they failed to take care of it, then right on the spot, they have to take care of it. And that meeting, even if the meeting goes on all night, the meeting doesn't stop until all the questions or accusations have been resolved and taken care of. And then after that, everything is forgiven and resolved. And you cannot bring it up later. So it's all buried after that. So that makes the community very harmonious. But even beforehand, if you notice that your colleague in the holy life has done something wrong, it's very kind to mention it to them ASAP, so they have the opportunity to take care of it. But it might be not the right time to mention it in front of an audience or in front of lay people. Like for monastics, we wouldn't reprimand each other in front of lay people. We would do it privately or apart from the lay people. And you could consider that if the person who is behaving wrongly, if they're ill, or if they're mentally ill, or if they're upset, or if they're disturbed and in some kind of a difficult circumstance, maybe they wouldn't be able to cope with it right at that time. And so you might save it for later. Brahmavara, do you have anything to tell us about the right time or the wrong time to make an accusation?
Thank you, Ayya. Yeah, I'm just reflecting on how this teaching is like such an invitation to investigate oneself first. And I think that's wonderful, you know. So what's my motivation? How's my state of mind? Is this actually going to be beneficial? Do I think so? Or do I have to consider how that would be to others? And all of these pointers, for me, it's like what I notice in monastic life, Ayya, isn't it, people are very reluctant to give feedback until they're really sure that it is the right time and that they're in a suitable space. And what I notice for myself is it then requires often, like, you almost have to set all the conditions so carefully. So oftentimes it would be sort of spending time with the person that you feel might benefit from some feedback, and then setting up the conditions so that they're in a really good space, getting to know them quite well, and then setting up the meeting, like a nice cup of tea together or something out in nature, something that's where they're relaxed and receptive, and it's friendly. It's friendly, and you feel resourced and kind and loving. So to get those conditions together, it's quite a work. And often I notice that monastics don't really give very much feedback because there's that kind of fear of not being really fit to give feedback. And rather, people often learn through observation rather than being told things. These are just a few reflections on this first part.
Yes, indeed. So all of the other conditions have to be met before it's the right time to give an accusation. And as well, there's something about, like the teaspoon of salt, like you were talking about last time. If one has truly proven oneself to be a Kalyanamita, to be a true friend who's trustworthy and who really cares about your friend and will do anything for your friend, and your friend knows that, then if you make an accusation against your friend is willing to receive it because it's within a context of knowing that the support and kindness is very large in proportionship to whatever the criticism might be. Whereas if you're somebody who never has a nice thing to say and not very supportive of others, just ignoring them, or somebody you just met and you don't know them very well, then the first thing you say is some criticism that could have the wrong effects, right? And then being truthful, Buddha, that's what exists. A lot of times, if something creates a disturbance in the mind, the mind can very quickly proliferate into like a story about how bad the situation is, about what the motives of the people are, which is all imagination. But if you just are trying to be extremely careful to notice, what you actually know that's true, and even check in with the person and say, well, it seemed like something happened from your perspective. Is it true? What really happened? And find out from them what really happened. And definitely exaggerations and not an outright falsehood. And then the speech should be gentle and not harsh. This part about what's beneficial and not harmful is something that I'm going to come back to again as we go through this sutta. The atta is the Pali word for a benefit, and it's not just happiness or pleasure, but it's what's really for our good, for our welfare, for our spiritual success. And so atta samita, connected with what's beneficial. One way that unskillful criticism can be unbeneficial is if it can be done in a way that is planting remorse, and then remorse gets like deeply into a person's psychology, and that actually is not a beneficial spiritual factor. It's not something that's helpful. So when I was brought up, my parents were worried about sex. They didn't want their girl children to get involved in sex. Okay, that's natural. But then it also made like sex was, possibly in my family made something that's like really scary and horrible, and then later as an adult I had to like overcome that remorse about sexuality, which is not inherently evil. It's a part of life, and so there's many other ways in which a child could be like not fitting into what the parent wants to. Okay, here's another example. When I was visiting a family one time, and they were giving a cocktail party in their home. This was back in the old days when I used to go to cocktail parties. And their little girl was like 4 years old, and she was just playing. And her father spoke to her, and he said, Susie, why don't you grow up? And it's like, she's 4 years old, you know, and that, so it was like this was like a vindictive because it based on dislike, not based on um, understanding of the stage of what it is to be a child and so on and so on. So it should be what's beneficial, and if you understand where somebody is at on their spiritual path, at different stages along the path, there's different work that's very important for them to focus on. So if you could help them to focus and see the thing that's relevant for the stage of development on the path that's useful to them, that would be very beneficial. And then, as speaking lovingly, not from secret hate, what you translate as secret hate is internal, means not with hatred, internally. So even if you think that you can control your words and control your tone of voice and control the expression on your face, if you have hatred internally, then that's not the way to give an accusation. Go on. No. Take a case where I see a certain person being accused at the wrong time, not being disturbed at the right time. They're accused falsely, not being disturbed truthfully. They're accused harshly, not disturbed gently. They're accused harmfully, not disturbed beneficially. They're accused with secret hate, not disturbed lovingly. This is very confusing and awkward in the English translation. The word the chodia is the accusation, and then kupita is the word for a disturbance. In this is Bhante translation. Here I see a certain person becomes upset when they are criticized at the wrong time, not at the right time. They become upset when they're criticized untruthfully, not truthfully. They became upset when they're criticized harshly, not gently. They became upset when they're criticized unbeneficially, not beneficially. They become upset when they were criticized with internal hatred, not with the mind of loving kindness. This is a free translation that seems to sort of change the meaning, but it's we need to explore and understand why it is that what it means when giving a correction or an accusation or a charge, if it's done in a way that causes this kupita, which is this disturbance. Kupita literally means shaking. In Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation, he says, I see some person being reproved at an improper time, not disturbed at a proper time, being reproved about what is false, not disturbed about what is true, being reproved harshly, not disturbed gently, being reproved in a harmful way, not disturbed in a beneficial way. being reproved by one who harbors hatred, not disturbed by one with a mind of loving kindness. Further down in the same sutta, they talk about the state for a person who is receiving the sutta. It says, even if others accuse me, even if it's the right time or the wrong time, truthfully or false, gentle, harsh, unbeneficial, lovingly or with secret hate, the Buddha says, I will still ground myself in two things: truth and an even temper. The truth is satcha, and the even temper is akupa. So the kupa is the disturbance, being disturbed, angry, upset, reacting. The akupa is having composure, remaining calm. Even akupa has two very high meanings. One meaning is when practicing samadhi, practicing the boundless meditations, one can achieve a akupa citta vimutti, a release of the heart which is unshakable. So one can obtain in meditation a state that's so expanded that it's not shakable at all. And then there's another meaning of akupa when the Buddha is speaking about an arahant. He says that for one who has no clinging to anything whatsoever, then there's nothing to be disturbed about. That monk becomes the sage at peace, who is not subjected to the tides of conceiving or the swelling of self-conceit. And I especially love that in that sutta, this is the Tatiyaupanisasutta Sutta, it says that the Arahant is protecting the truth, protecting satcha, and obtaining this non-disturbance, obtaining this sublime peace, this akupa. And so the Buddha then here, when he's talking about an accusation, saying one who's receiving an accusation, if you're a Buddha, you are fully, directly cognizing the truth of the way things are. You wouldn't be tricked or fooled by some story that somebody's telling you. You know how things can get twisted. And making a false accusation, the truth can be twisted. But if you were an arahant, you would know directly, and you would protect your knowledge of the truth, how it really is. And then as well, you would have that quality of supreme composure or being not disturbed. Even in that sense, akupa is an epithet for nibbana. And it just seems so interesting to me that in this sutta is really not necessarily speaking about an arahant or it's more likely speaking about a monk who's a trainee who is still possibly could be presented with some accusation which might be truthful. They might have done that wrong thing, or they might have not done that wrong thing, but they're confronted with an accusation. But in that case, they should call up within themselves that quality of composure. And even somebody in the secular world, if you were, let's say, if you were a civil rights leader or a leader in peace movement, leading a protest, and the police were coming down on you with their shields and their sticks and beating you up, or called up in some kind of public thing, and the enemies shaking their fingers and making false accusations, that somebody who was a great, like a hero in the world, would have, because of their spiritual development, they would have that quality of composure. And because they have that quality of composure, then false accusations would not hurt them. It would just bounce off without really hurting them. Yeah. I'm going on a big sideline here, but again, I see Pasadi Vihara. I see Ayya Sobhana. Welcome, Ayya. Let me add a spotlight so we can get a look at you. Do you have something to tell us?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. This is such a wonderful sutta, and it also is confusing, like the language of it, especially later on. And I really appreciated how you explained akupa and kupa, or the word, the longer form of that. And what strikes me about the sutta is in the simile of the saw. I don't know if you were going to mention that, but these 5 courses of speech, and then it's a kind of a reflection on the sutta, and that how we are spoken to, each one of us, and whether it's timely or untimely, true or false, harshly or gently, harmfully or beneficially, with secret hate or with loving kindness, that we have that stability you're talking about, that it talks about the mind being undisturbed. My mind will be undisturbed. I will utter no harmful words. I will have compassion for that whoever was speaking to me, however they were speaking to me. I will have compassion for their welfare, and I will pervade them. Starting with them, I'll pervade the all-encompassing world with a heart imbued with loving kindness. And so you were talking about that stability of mind of the Arahant. So it's like the kind of the high bar of the simile of the saw, no matter how anyone is treating us. So it's interesting, this accusation that, so we are to approach somebody in a way not to, it's on us again, because we're the ones that are, only we can develop ourselves, but we can extend that kindness to others. So hopefully they'll hear us. So I really thank you for bringing up the sutta, and I just it's interesting that the same aspects of speech are being presented in this way in this sutta.
So despite the way the translation in English is a bit awkward and difficult to understand. What I do take from this is that we may be speaking to somebody who's not yet an arhat, who might even be, a patujana who doesn't know anything at all about the Dhamma, or somebody who's a child or who's an innocent. And we ought to not plant that disturbed and reactive mind in them by giving wrong, unskillful accusations. And then it's like we're planting the disturbances in the mind, which could take them a whole lifetime, decades in therapy, or a long time of Dhamma practice to be able to overcome those habits of the mind that were planted. But instead, when we speak to our children or speak to somebody who's less than fully enlightened, we could speak to them in a way that is supporting for them to keep their composure while they hear. Now, we can go back and Richard. Yes.
Thank you, Ayya. You kind of touched on it, what I was going to mention. I don't think disturbed is a bad word here. I think it's the clear way of understanding. Almost every being will be disturbed if accused of something by another person, unless you're an arahant or Buddha, like you were talking about, that akupa, right?
Yeah.
Rather than, that undisturbed, So I think he's using the language to say, hey, be careful. If you accuse someone, this is going to, in most cases, almost all, I would say, cause some kind of disturbance. So check yourself first. Make sure you don't have these unhealthy reasons for doing it, and make sure you do it in the correct way, the proper way, because for almost everybody, it's going to cause some degree of mental disturbance, agitation in the mind, like that. So yeah, at first reading it seems awkward, but I think it's the intent. I think it's Sariputa's intent, to say, hey, be careful now, don't disturb others, just for your own selfish ends or something like that. It really needs to be something real, and even then, do it in the right way, the most beneficial way, the most careful way, like that. Yeah, anyways, that's all I wanted to say. Thank you very much for listening.
I'm going to go back and continue reading, and the next important word that's coming along will be remorse. And we'll try to understand what that signifies. So now I've got to get back where we were. Okay. A mendicant who is accused improperly should be reassured in 5 ways. This improper accusation is adhamma, the opposite of the Dhamma. That also is sometimes translated as unjust in secular terms, like in the secular law, like an unjust king or unjust government would be adhamma. And also evil, immoral behavior is also adhamma. It's opposite of dhamma. And then this word for being reassured is avipatisara, which also has the meaning of non-remorse. So, the 5 ways to be reassured. Venerable, you were accused at the wrong time, not the right time. There's no need for you to feel remorse. You were accused falsely, not truthfully, harshly, not gently, harmfully, not beneficially, with secret hate, not lovingly. There's no need for you to feel remorse. A mendicant who is accused improperly should be reassured in these 5 ways. And then a mendicant who makes an improper accusation should be chastened in 5 ways. And that the word that's translated as chastened is vipatisara, which elsewhere is translated as remorse. So one should have 5 kinds of remorse. You made an accusation falsely, not truthfully, harshly, not gently, harmfully, not beneficially, with secret hate, not lovingly. A mendicant who makes an improper accusation should be chastened in these 5 ways. Why is that? So that another mendicant wouldn't think to make a false accusation. So then I'm going to give another sutta that will make us have a deeper understanding of this patisara. This is the Tatiyaupanisasutta. Upanisa is about the vital conditions. This is the spiral path of leading to awakening. And in this case, the very beginning, they say, reverence, an unethical person who lacks ethics has destroyed a vital condition for having no regrets. This avipatisara, having no regrets. Where there are regrets, one who has regrets has destroyed a vital condition for joy. Where there are regrets, one who has regrets has destroyed a vital condition for joy. Think of it. If you had if you owned a prison and you could take a prisoner, a criminal, and put them in prison and cause them to have regrets, spend them to 5, 10, 20 years of regrets and destroy their joy. Would you like to do that? Or if you have a child, would you like to treat your child so harshly and criticize your child so that the child is continuously having regrets and thinking that they're not good enough? They're not the way that mommy or daddy wants them to be. And then they grow up with regrets, and then it's destroying the condition for joy. Like, it's, wow, this is like, it makes me get shivers to think about what a danger this would be, because this would just discern the entire way to enlightenment. And right there at the first floor at the sub-basement, the path is blocked off through regrets. And then where there's no joy, they've destroyed the vital condition for rapture or piti. Where there's no rapture, you have destroyed the condition for tranquility. Passaddhi, where there's no tranquility, you've destroyed the condition for bliss or sukha. Where there's no bliss, you destroy the condition for right immersion or samadhi. Where there's no immersion, you've destroyed the condition for true knowledge and vision. Where there's no knowledge or vision, destroy the condition for disillusionment and dispassion. Where there's no condition for disillusionment and dispassion. There's no condition for knowledge and vision of freedom, just like a tree. And then likewise, an ethical person who has fulfilled ethics has fulfilled a vital condition for not having regrets. And so this is like the joy of sila. Yeah.
Like someone does something on us, we're not trying to like guilt trip them so much as inspire them to do the thing that's going to be more joyful.
Right. That's it. So if somebody has taken the wrong turn and done something unskillful, then they have to get the correction in a way that enables them to come out of it. And then when they come out of it, they take care of it, they make amends, make the adhitthana, the determination not to continue behaving in that way. And that is certainly the condition for getting away from having regrets. So even, Angulimala, who murdered 99 people and kept their fingers, nevertheless, when he met the Buddha, he stopped killing and made the adhitthana to give up killing. And then the Buddha counseled him to not to carry any more regrets about having been a killer in the past, but instead, from that moment forward, to be one who doesn't kill.
I think like so much of our culture and even like upbringing like centered around this whole idea of like punishment, and like it's very contrary to the Dhamma in some ways.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
That's why we're so miserable. Mitakanti was just saying our culture is really built on being punitive in a lot of ways, and that people are never able to be good enough, that they feel like they're stained with a sinful nature that they're not able to get out of. They don't realize that it's possible to give up wrong, bad ethics, and to then emerge from into right ethics. I see two hands up now. Sharanya first, and then Richard.
Ayya, I think this connection between unethical behavior and regret is very logical and makes a lot of sense. But as a therapist, I work with a lot of people who have regrets about just big, huge life decisions that happen due to certain conditions or culture, ignorance. And I've also heard people say that's almost impossible to live a life without having regret of some kind.
Mm.
I don't know if you have any opinions about that, if you have a response for that.
Well, some people think it's impossible to have a life without anger, or that it's impossible to have a life without greed. But I think there's a distinction between what's called hiri otapa, which is conscience and prudence, which are like the guardians that stop you from doing something wrong. And hiri otapa is those are wholesome qualities that help us to avoid wrongdoing. But regret is what causes us to continuously feel disturbed, upset, sad, depressed because of something that has already happened in the past, which is not able to change. And as I understand the teaching of the Buddha, there's no benefit from regret. You should square up your ethics, stop behaving against your ethics, and make amends, make the determination to keep yourself pure as well as you can understand it. And then live a life without regret. It's really totally opposite to our culture. But I think that, and then joy comes from that. Perhaps in other religious systems where they have the idea of forgiveness, if they think that God has forgiven them for their sins, and they're able to drop that constant burden of feeling remorse and regret, and they feel that lightness, and a lot of joy comes from that. And so, yeah, we don't. It's just because of causes and conditions. The bad choices that we made in the past just happened because of causes and conditions. Whatever that happened. So those conditions, those causes are finished. And then we have to just cope with whatever we have in front of us right now. Richard.
Thank you, Ed. So this list of things after non-regret is like, he translates the first one as joy. I prefer gladness, and then gladness leads to joy. And he's talking about going from leaving the 5 hindrances behind to going into the jhanas. And then that process leading you all the way to enlightenment. And so you have to develop your mindfulness sufficiently to do this process. And that mindfulness that you develop is present, remembering to stay present, to see Dhamma as it really is right now. And so that's why you go beyond regret, because now you have a mind that's in the present. And that ability to develop that mindfulness is based on the 6th right effort, separating kusala from akusala, and getting your mind to tend only towards the kusala. So now you have no regret. You're able to establish mindfulness, and then boom, 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 you go forward from there. So it has to do with being in the present all the time. Being in the present in the correct way allows you to, move forward. Anyways, that's just my observation. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. But if somebody accuses you and you do feel regret because the accusation is truthful and was given properly, then I think you might feel regret for a minute, just long enough to take care of it and to come out of it and to make amends and to make the adhitthana, not to continue in that same pattern. I'm going to call on Damon. This is a wonderful sutta because it's inspiring some of our friends to speak.
Okay, thank you. If you could say something about my experience with regret is if I try too hard to chase it away, it persists. There's a slogan, what we resist persists. So could you also relate to that if you try to push it away too much, as opposed to just letting it be, if it arises along with everything else that's coming in the present moment, why should that be rejected, too harshly? Okay, I'm experiencing regret, but I'm also moving on to better things.
Well, I'm in a way, it's funny that regret is not listed as its own hindrance. Vicikiccha is sometimes translated as restlessness and remorse, but it's certainly true that a huge part of our practice is really studying dukkha. I like to say we need to get a PhD in dukkha. So you need to observe all of the factors and patterns of the mind that lead to the arising of dukkha and that cause the repetition and the reoccurrence and the continuation of patterns of dukkha. You need to understand what causes these conditions to arise and what causes them to not arise, what causes them to stop, what causes them not to stop. Sometimes if you're not having the ability to just say, be gone, regret, be gone, I'm finished with you, but it doesn't go. Okay, so in that case, just like a patient waiting, patient observing, and then that feeling of regret may go away because of one special reason. Do you know what the reason is? Impermanence, yes. So because of impermanence, it doesn't last forever. So you may be feeling a lot of regret, and then the lunch bell rings and it's time for lunch, and you're not feel regret anymore because you're feeling happy because you're going to get lunch. But then gradually, like with time, one may notice that there are some things that we can do to make the regret ease up. Like if I, every time I lose my temper, then I feel regret afterwards, then I might try not losing my temper the next time. Like the situation where I normally lose my temper, if I could be prepared and just, at that moment, I can just give a flower instead of angry words. And even though I feel like a phony baloney because inside I'm saying you so and so, but then, but I didn't lose my temper that one time. I managed to not lose my temper, and so then I don't feel regret that time. And then it's possible to retrain. It is possible to retrain the mind and to retrain the subconscious so that these things are not so dominant, and so we can learn how to step away from them. I don't want us to be mean to ourselves, but also not to think it's okay to just keep these negative habits, because not good, not what the Buddha recommends.
Thank you.
I'll call on Sivijana.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I just wanted to speak about regret, and there is this one sutta. I'm sorry, I can't remember what number it is. It's in the Samyutta Nikaya in the section on the headman, and the headman is asking about karma, and he talks about anyone who's killed or stolen or transgressed with somebody else's spouse or lied. And there's a belief that anyone who committed those at all would go to hell. And then the Buddha refuted that. And he talked about abandoning the unwholesome behavior. But he mentioned regret. And he said that the person first feels some amount of regret. And they say that I know that what I did can't be undone. And that wasn't a good thing. But then they make a resolve not to do it again. And many of us have had behaviors that we have done that we now realize that they were unwholesome, unhealthy, so-called bad, evil, those words are very charged, but something that we don't want to do again. We don't want to steal again. I don't want to kill insects, such and such. So I've made a resolve. I'm not doing that ever again. And then the Buddha talks about transcending that behavior by abandoning it. But there's still, you have to see, this was not healthy. This was not right. So that kind of regret, I think that's a hiriotapa. Maybe it was the word, I'm sorry, I don't have the sutta and the Pali word for it, but the way it was translated was regret.
Mhm.
So the idea is that we see, okay, this was not a good idea. I made a mistake. And then we can say, okay, made a mistake. I'm not going to do it again. Something like anger, I know for myself, that's the challenge. And these kind of habits, if for most of our life we were prone to anger, to be able to let go of anger, we may say, oh, I said something out of anger and I can see the danger. And then just at least make a resolve to try to reduce it. How can I reduce it? Well, it's kind of like, oh, if I'm out of shape physically, it's going to take time for me to exercise and get my strength back or something like that. So I think according to the Buddhist teaching, there is healthy regret, but we put that energy, instead of beating ourselves up into saying, I've made a resolve to abandon that behavior and to develop something wholesome in its place.
Mhm.
So that's what's come up with this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Ayya Brahmavara was so nice to join us, and she can't even get a word in edgewise. I'm going to read another section of the sutta and then call on Ayya Brahmavara to explain it. And coming back to is the Codanāsutta visible to everyone?
Yes.
The mendicant who makes improper accusations should be chastened in these 5 ways. Why is that? So that another mendicant wouldn't think to make the false accusation. Take the case where I see a certain person being accused at the right time, not being disturbed at the wrong time. They're accused truthfully, not disturbed falsely. They're accused gently, not disturbed harshly. They're accused beneficially, not disturbed harmfully. They're accused lovingly, not disturbed with secret hate. The mendicant who is accused properly should be chastened in 5 ways. Venerable, you were accused at the right time, not at the wrong time. There's a reason for you to feel remorse. You were accused truthfully, not falsely, gently, not harshly, beneficially, not harmfully, lovingly, not with secret hate. There's a reason for you to feel remorse. A mendicant who is accused properly should be chastened in these 5 ways. Explain.
Thank you, Ayya. Yes, I mean, once the conditions are met, for feedback to be given, then how useful it is. And to be able to receive feedback without resistance or opposition or prevarication or accusing the accuser. That, in many suttas, isn't it, the Buddha gave advice about how to receive feedback, and it's to receive it with gratitude and to reflect. And then there's that opportunity to see if there's any remorse, if there's any reason to need to change our behavior. So resetting our intention comes about, in my experience, through remorse. So we've done something, there's a sense of either I noticed myself, that was painful, that was unskillful, or someone kindly, generously points out to me, did you realize when you did that, the effect? Then, gratefully I can investigate. And remorse has its place, of course, because it enables us to change and purify our sila, our conduct. And that's its use, isn't it, Ayya Sobhana? As you say, it's no longer useful if we get caught up in remorse. But as our other friend said, you know, it can come up and we can, Damon said, we can notice the arising of remorse. And for me, it's like a gift because it gives us an opportunity to feel that suffering and reset our intention. Happens naturally, happens automatically, that we just don't want to go there. We don't want to get burnt again. We want to keep away from that fire. And so we'll refine our behavior accordingly. So anyway, this piece, I feel it's pointing to the value of feedback and the way it should be received and how good it is to open to the discomfort that we may feel around feedback and meet it with truth. What is the truth? And keep an even akupa mind and calmly investigate and let go of any unwholesomeness as a result.
And then it's continuing with the same themes about the mendicant who makes the proper accusation. They should be reassured in 5 ways. They made it at the right time, not the wrong time, truthfully, not falsely, gently, not harshly, beneficially, not harmfully, lovingly, not with secret hate. And so they would not feel any remorse. And again, coming back to part of my theme at the beginning, if we see things in society, whether in our family, in our community, in our government, or in society as a whole, if we see things that are improper, that ought to be changed, then if we know how to skillfully speak, to point out and to actually make a skillful accusation to society, say, it's not right like this. There's got to be another way. That then we ourselves will be safe because we don't have to be remorseful if we've taken care in how we give that criticism or that accusation. And there's a chance that others will be able to hear and will be able to experience some remorse to the extent if they were involved and responsible for something wrong or unskillful. And then they have an opportunity to change. A person who is accused should ground themselves in 2 things: truth and an even temper. Satya is truth, and akupa here is translated as the even temper.
Excuse me, Ayya, did you miss the last line of that previous section? Or was I just unattentive? Why is that? So that another mendicant would think to make a true
Why
accusation?
would the person who's making the accusation is reassured so that another mendicant would think to make a true accusation? Yes. The person who's accused grounds themselves in truth and an even temper. Even if others accuse me, and this is taking it to the next level, at the right time or the wrong time, truthfully or falsely, gently or harshly, beneficially or harmfully, lovingly or with secret hate, I will still ground myself in 2 things: truth and an even temper. If I know that that quality is found in me, I will tell them that it is. If I know that quality is not found in me, I will tell them that it is not. This is what's called acknowledging. So if anger was in me, and I say, yes, anger was in me, and that acknowledging is part of making, resolving and being able to come out of remorse, and to cure whatever was done unskillful. The Buddha goes on, even when you speak like this, Sariputta, there are still some silly people here who do not respectfully take it up. Sir, there are those faithless people who went forth from lay life to homelessness, not out of faith, but to earn a livelihood. They're devious, deceitful, sneaky, they're restless, insolent, fickle, scurrilous, and loose-tongued. They do not guard their sense doors or eat in moderation, and they are not dedicated to wakefulness. They don't care about the ascetic life and don't keenly respect that training. They're indulgent and slack, leaders in backsliding, neglecting seclusion, lazy, lacking energy. They're unmindful, lacking situational awareness and immersion, with straying minds, witless, stupid. When I speak to them like this, they don't respectfully take it up. And then the situational awareness is the Pali word sampajanya, which is sometimes translated as clear comprehension. But then there are others, those who went forth from lay life to homelessness out of faith, not devious, deceitful, and sneaky, not restless, insolent, fickle, scurrilous, and loose-tongued. They guard their sense doors and eat in moderation. They're dedicated to wakefulness. They care about the ascetic life and keenly respect the training. They're not indulgent or slack, nor are they leaders in backsliding, neglecting seclusion. They are energetic and determined. They are mindful, with situational awareness, immersion, and unified minds, wise, not stupid. When I speak to them like this, they do respectfully take it up. And the Buddha advises, sir, those faithless people who went forth from lay life to homelessness not out of faith, but to earn a livelihood, leave them be. Those gentlemen who went forth from lay life to homelessness out of faith and so on, you should speak to them. Sariputta, you should advise your spiritual companions. You should instruct your spiritual companions, thinking, I will draw my spiritual companions away from false teaching and ground them in true teachings. That's how you should train. So, in this case, the Buddha is suggesting to focus his effort in teaching on those who are trainable and not to focus on those who are not trainable. I welcome any comments, closing questions by Brahmavara.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I don't know about you all, but in my experience, to be given feedback is such a gift, and to give feedback is such a generous act. It's like it's trouble to take the trouble to give people feedback is a great kindness, because it's easy to just let things slide or just to leave people to their own devices. So to bring oneself to another person in order to offer them something of benefit is just such a great gift. And I really picked that up here at the end of the sutta, where Sariputta is encouraged to do give feedback, do help those who are really wanting to train and whose hearts are in the right place. And so I just feel that it's not easy to give feedback, but it's a great kindness. And when we get to receive feedback from others, to take it in that spirit of this person's really put themselves out, risking, my reactivity, how kind And can I be grateful for this? And when we're grateful for feedback, then we're far more likely to be able to make use of it and benefit from it in the spirit in which it's given.
Thank you. Sivijana, do you have a closing comment? Your sound.
There. Ah, yes. Thank you for sharing this. Thank you, Ayya Brahmawar. That's a very, touching comment you made. Yeah, it occurs to me there may be some people that are on the borderline of being receptive and not receptive, and this is why the Buddha has laid out these guidelines to speak to people, yes, and handle them gently. And then, but there's also that our own training, no matter how someone speaks to us, that we should be able to receive it, even though we didn't, it was a bad time that they spoke to me and whatever I could complain about. I might just consider, is there truth in that? Is that so? Am I just reacting to how it was delivered? And so this is it's in the sutta, and it's also in the simile of the saw. No matter how anyone speaks to us, that we should be compassionate toward them, but also ourselves, I think. So thank you so much. It's good to spend time in the Dhamma like this with you.
Thank you, everybody, for your patient listening, for your good efforts, for your practice. We can close by giving respects to the Triple Gem. Araham Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi Savakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supartipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Sangham Namami.
Thank you, Ayya.